Koga was a useless psychic loser who always got jumped by ghosts because he could see them. However, this changed when he became an exorcist and discovered a haunted inn with ghost girls till he moved in and started clapping them for revenge. When he first arrived at the inn, he found no ghost there and so decided to have his first bathe in the month, only to discover that a ghost girl was in the same bath, washing up. The ghost was shocked he could see her and being embarrassed. She rained bath bowls on him, knocking him out cold. He later woke up in the lap of a woman and she introduced herself as Nakai, the innkeeper. And just then, a drunkard named Nanko entered, looking so sus that it almost made Kogarashi wet himself. A dagger suddenly came flying across his face, and he realized it was from a girl called Sakiri, who was pissed that he was looking at Nanko's well-rounded melons. Finally, this cat girl called Yaya came out from under the table, just over his plot region, and it was then Koga realized the inn was not really haunted with spirits. There were just a bunch of freaky psychos. Later, when he got to his room, he found a pair of cakes shooting out from the wall, and realizing it was the same ghost girl from the bath. He pulled her out till she sat on his face. The girl introduced herself as Yuna, a ghost bound to the inn, and seeing how nice she was, he thought that exorcising her would be difficult since the only method he knew to use was punching. Following that, she arranged the futons for the night, and they both laid down to sleep. However, Bro struggled because his magnum wasn't calm. Knowing there was a girl in the room, she asked him why he came to Uraji Inn, and he narrated how his life had been miserable before now because his body was a vacation spot for spirits. He hated evil spirits because of this and was on a mission to defeat them so he could get back his normal life. Yuna told him she was happy he came here because this was the first time he was speaking to a human who wasn't scared of her. He then asked her what her lingering regret was because his mentor had once told him that spirits tend to turn evil after sticking around for long, and it would be better if her lingering regret was resolved so she could ascend before it was too late. She was surprised he was worried for her, but then a little rat suddenly appeared out of nowhere, immediately scaring her and suspending everything in the air immediately, including Koga. She quickly apologized that things like this always happen whenever she was shaken. Koga suddenly hit the floor again, but this time, he was on top of her as her plot armor gave way for her melons to say hi. She got embarrassed again, instantly activating her power and throwing him out to the window. The next day, while Koga returned from exploring town, he suddenly saw a Gandalf wannabe staring at Yuna and knew something was off. He started running for the inn immediately. However, Gandalf was already in the room, trying to forcefully send Yuna to heaven before she turned evil. Koga got to the room's entrance at this moment, and seeing that he was just a Guma monk seeking to exorcise her, he thought maybe this was the best thing for her. However, as she writhed in pain, she suddenly stated she didn't want to go yet because there were still many things she wanted to see and do, and that she had just made a new friend whom she had yet to know. Koga immediately pitied her and intervened by grabbing the lightning and breaking it. The monk got angry and attacked Koga, thinking he was protecting her because they were doing unholy things together, but Koga knocked him out with one punch. He then told Yuna he had decided to help her resolve her lingering regret, making her break into tears because no one had ever told her this. However, they suddenly heard the monk's grunt, and as Koga tried to protect Yuna, he mistakenly grabbed her milk pack, immediately causing him to be thrown off again into the other girl's bath. Seeing him, Sakiri almost ate him alive. The next day, Koga woke up and found himself in the air with Yuna, lying on his chest uncensored, scaring him. They fell off into the river below, and following this, Koga was walking along the hallway, done with all these crazy things. But Yuna pleaded, stating she would start sleeping far away from him. However, he told her he would prefer to be chained instead. Sagiri overheard this and thought he was saying something naughty, so she offered to chain him instead with a threatening tone. He joined them at the table and stated how surprised he was that they could see Yuna, which was no wonder they didn't feel threatened in the inn. He became suspicious that they could all be ghosts, but Nanko replied that she wasn't by showing him a view of her plot. However, the naughty idiot told her ghosts became unrecognizable if they had stayed around for a long time, so Nanko grabbed his head and shoved it into her melons to clear his doubt. He quickly moved away because she smelled like your unwashed underwear, and Yuna said it was because of her drinking habits. Sakiri got angry for no reason and attempted to out him, asking Yuna if he had done any naughty thing to her. Yuna instantly remembered some of their sus moments and instantly became embarrassed, lifting all the objects in the room. Knowing what this meant, Sakiri immediately tried several attempts to send Koga to the afterlife. However, he boldly stated that he had no plans to move out of room 4, and whereas he had promised Yuna to ascend her to heaven. Hearing this, the girls became sober, realizing that it was true Yuna would one day need to ascend. A few moments later, they suddenly heard a yell from outside, and upon checking, they discovered it was the Goma monk from yesterday. He had come with his clan to fight to exorcise Yuna by force. The thirsty Baldies saw the women and got permission from their leader to do to them as roughly as they wanted. Seeing this, Koga told the girls to hide while he handled this since it was his fault, but they shockingly stepped forward and started wiping the floor with the monks' behinds, using their respective powers, while Koga just watched in awe. Finally, Nakai entered the chat and activated a mysterious power that instantly gave all the monks good fortune, and they immediately quit their jobs. Koga was confused, but Yuna explained that Nakai was actually a protective household deity who manipulated luck. Bro got excited and asked Nakai to share some luck with him also, so he could revive his red crypto portfolio, but Sagiri advised him against it because the power only used up the future luck the beneficiary already had, and they couldn't be sure if Bro even had any luck ahead. Afterward, they all officially welcomed him to the inn. The next morning, Koga woke up to Yuna's cookie in his mouth. But while he tried to remove himself from under her so he wouldn't trigger her destructive powers, she suddenly woke up, and embarrassed, she threw him out of the window again. Afterward, she apologized to him for always doing that to him as they walked to the diner. Meanwhile, Koga suddenly found a cute cat and grabbed it so he could stroke the cat. Yuna tried to warn him, but he brushed off her alarms, and the cat instantly transformed into Yaya, shocking him. Sagiri appeared at this moment, boiling after seeing his cultured acts scaring Koga, who immediately tried to explain himself, but Yaya made things worse by saying he had deliberately grabbed her. Following this, Nakai reported that she received a petition requesting that Koga be sent out of the inn for good, and to decide if this would be granted, they had to hold a competition. The winner would get to decide whatever they wanted for the loser. Nakai revealed the competition was ping pong, and Yaya and Sagiri formed a team against Koga and Yuna. Koga rebutted that he hated this game, which gave Yaya and Sagiri some sense of confidence, but the moment they started the match, they realized that dude was just capping earlier. He was a pro. Koga then revealed that he had once been possessed by a ping pong coach who put him through some very rigorous training, which he really hated, but thanks to it, he had become a national level expert. Hearing this, Sagiri got serious and cloned herself into 5 before unleashing a deceptive serve. She told Yuna she was going to save her from the immoral idiot as she made another serve, but while Yuna tried to defend him, she remembered their sus positions and became embarrassed, returning all the balls successfully. Koga was surprised by this and encouraged her to keep doing that. However, after a series of back and forth with the two teams in a tie, Yuna's power stopped activating since she was already used to the embarrassment. Sagiri made a last serve that would decide the winner, and thinking fast on what to do, Yuna decided to show Koga her panties, instantly making her embarrassed, thus throwing the ping pong table over. The service landed on the ground, and Nakai declared Koga and Yuna the winners. However, Yuna became really embarrassed and threw everyone out through the window. When they returned to the room and were rearranging, Sagiri told Koga she wouldn't try to kick him out again, but if he ever did anything to hurt any of them, getting kicked out would be the least of his worries. The two girls then tried to carry a table, and Koga offered to help, but the idiot tripped and fell, holding their melons in the process. This led to a thorough beating that almost sent him to heaven. The next morning, Yuna woke up and immediately went into panic mode when she realized Koga had vanished. This girl started spiraling, thinking he had dipped because she had been acting like a complete menace, so she began searching the entire place like a lost puppy. Thankfully, Nakai had to break it to her that the dude just went to school for his entrance ceremony. At school, Koga was living his best life, finally achieving his dream of attending a normal school after years of getting absolutely wrecked by random spirits at every previous school. Bro had trained himself to become a spirit medium just so he could one-shot any ghost that dared to mess with his peace. But of course, his celebration got cut short when Yuna showed up, and he watched some random student walk straight through her, reminding him that normal people couldn't see her floating around. In the classroom, an absolute waste of space. He introduced himself and started gushing about how blessed they were to have the school's supposed hottest girl, Chisaki, in their class. Meanwhile, Koga looked at this girl and saw absolutely nothing special because she had the appeal of expired milk to him. That's when he noticed Yuna acting sus and trying to peek under Chisaki's skirt. He desperately tried to stop her, but Yuna's chaotic energy won, and since nobody else could see the ghost girl, everyone assumed Koga was the one being a creep. The poor guy tried explaining himself, but the whole class had already labeled him as a walking red flag, so he had to confront Yuna about throwing him under the bus. She apologized and explained that she was just testing if she could change into the school uniform since her clothes were basically part of her spiritual body and she could swap outfits just by thinking about them. When Koga pointed out that if her clothes were part of her body, she was technically always walking around with nothing on, Yuna turned redder than a tomato, and her suspension powers went completely crazy, launching everyone in the classroom into the air before slamming them back down like they were in a wrestling match. A few moments later, the whole room was buzzing about the new transfer student who had started lifting girls' skirts from day one. Feeling like a complete fool, Koga stood up and took full responsibility for the chaos, telling everyone he was a spirit medium and that the ghost he brought along was the real troublemaker. Naturally, the class thought he had lost his mind and started roasting him for talking absolute nonsense, but Chisaki was staring at him like she could see the size of his magnum. Later, during the break, Chisaki pulled him aside for a private chat, and Koga's brain immediately jumped to conclusions, thinking he was about to get a love confession on his first day. Instead, she hit him with the reality check that she wanted his help with some supernatural weirdness happening at her house. Koga agreed to check it out, but the moment he stepped into her room, this girl's mind went straight to the gutter, thinking about him grabbing her and destroying her from the back. Koga examined the possessed plushies Chisaki had complained about and started throwing hands at every single one to exorcise whatever spirits might be lurking inside, leaving Chisaki wondering if he was also rough like that and pried it.
What do you mean by that?
When he realized there were no actual spirits in the toys, he figured someone was controlling them from a distance and handed one to Yuna to check for any spiritual signatures. Poor Yuna was so excited to finally be helpful after causing nothing but chaos. However, she became scared when the plushie suddenly moved, instantly activating her suspension powers and throwing everyone in the air again. Koga ended up in a compromising position with Chisaki, which made her so embarrassed that she threw him out of the room while calling him a loser. But since the problem was still unresolved, Koga decided to stick around. Later that night, after Chisaki finished her bath, the stuffed animals came to life and started ripping her clothes off until she was left uncensored. However, Koga burst through the door and started throwing punches at the possessed toys like he was in an action anime. He grabbed one of them and used his spirit lean technique to track down whoever was pulling the strings behind this madness. Following the trail led them to some sketchy dude in a hoodie who got way too cocky for his own good and summoned a monster to fight them. Koga stepped up and delivered one of his signature one-punch moves, absolutely destroying the monster in seconds. The hooded figure immediately started begging for mercy and transformed back into their true form, which turned out to be a young girl, leaving everyone completely shocked. She introduced herself as Koyuzu, explaining that she came from some useless clan that kicked out girls to survive on their own after they learned basic magic. She admitted she was supposed to transform into an adult to blend in with society, but she was terrible at shapeshifting and had been living like a homeless person in some abandoned temple. The whole reason she started this mess was because she spotted Chisaki and became obsessed with her assets, so she put magical leaves in the dolls so she could stream her exclusive content in high definition. When Chisaki felt sorry for her and got closer to comfort her, the little Yunjin immediately took advantage of the situation in a way you have only seen in your dreams, which embarrassed Chisaki so much that she turned around and called Koga a complete loser instead, leaving Bro wondering how the heck this was his fault. That night, they brought Koyuzu to stay at the inn temporarily, and when Chisaki asked about her the next day, Koga remembered the girl was having the time of her life playing with every balloon in sight all night long. Finally, as a thank you gesture, Chisaki offered him some free cookies, which made him ridiculously happy since he never thought his broke behind would get the chance to taste something that good in his entire life. A few days later, after Sagiri finished demolishing some spirits on her latest mission, she got hit with news that her next assignment involved hunting down a Yukai. But this time, she needed backup from a spirit medium who had been trained by the Chuma Ninja Army. Unfortunately for her, Koga was the only option. She headed to the school the next day and asked him to meet her on the rooftop, which shocked one of Koga's classmates who had been gunning to her beauty in his mind. At first she was acting all stubborn and proud, but eventually had to swallow her ego and admit that he was actually powerful enough to be useful. She wanted to hire him for this mission, but told Yuna she needed to sit this one out because things were about to get spicy and dangerous. That night, Koga showed up at their meeting spot, wondering just how terrifying this Yukai had to be for someone as overpowered as Sakiri to need his help. When Sagiri finally appeared, she handed him some clothes and told him to change into them because it was needed for the mission. After he got dressed, she dropped the bomb about some cultured Yukai running around the park, targeting couples and getting way too touchy with them. The reason she called him was so they could pretend to be a couple and use themselves as bait to lure this creepy monster out of hiding. She explained that this particular Yukai was obsessed with munching on clothes that had absorbed human pheromones, which was absolutely disgusting even by monster standards. When Koga asked if the clothes she gave him offered any protection against the Yukai, she casually said no because they actually needed the monster to be attracted to them. This made him realize that if their clothes got destroyed, he might end up seeing her in all her glory, which caused her to immediately threaten to send him to the afterlife. But then she surprised him by saying she wouldn't mind stripping in front of him if it meant saving all the women who were getting harassed by this naughty monster. They began walking around, and after walking for ages without seeing any sign of the Yukai, Koga suspected that the monster could probably sense Sagiri's intense murderous intent from a mile away, so it went into hiding. Meanwhile, Sagiri didn't think so. Instead, she said she was built more like a Jigachad than a cute girl, so the Yukai probably looked at them and saw two dudes taking a casual stroll instead of a romantic couple. Hearing this, Koga suggested they should link arms to look more convincing, and the moment they did, a thick fog rolled in and covered them completely, not even sure if they were in the rainbow party. Their clothes immediately started dissolving, and Sagiri jumped out of the fog to see what was happening while Koga stayed inside, trying to fight whatever was causing this mess. He quickly spotted the source of the fog and launched a devastating punch that cleared the entire area, shocking Sakiri, who had always assumed the most impressive thing he could do with his hands was touch melons. The fog revealed its true monstrous spider form, and Sagiri wasted no time charging at it with her ninja daggers, slicing it to pieces in seconds. But as she was falling from the sky after her attack, Koga rushed to catch her, and all her plot spread open right before him on a platter. Sagiri became embarrassed and unleashed her wrath on him again. After changing back to their original clothes, Koga mentioned their fancy clothes, which were now torn, but Sagiri told him she didn't love them anyway. However, Koga said she looked cute in it, though, instantly turning her face red, and for the next few days, she wouldn't stop checking herself in the mirror because of the compliment. The next day, during lunch, Koyuzu was praising Nakai for her amazing cooking skills, but Nakai had to break the bad news that she was leaving for an important trip, and they would have to handle all the cooking duties themselves until she got back. After she left, everyone tried to split up the kitchen responsibilities, but they all ended up creating absolute disasters. And finally, grilled fish was served. When they tasted it, they were blown away and wondered who made it, only for them to discover it was Koga. Everyone was completely stunned, and he explained that he had once been possessed by a professional chef who taught him everything about grilling and cooking. When Yaya tasted his grilled fish, she was so surprised by how incredible it was that the next day she started following him around like a lovesick puppy. He had no idea what was going on, but no matter how hard he tried to avoid her, she kept tracking him down everywhere, even to the bathroom. Because what good was fish when his meat was big enough? Later, while they were sitting together, Yuna noticed that Yaya had been acting like this ever since the day Koga cooked, which made him realize she was just desperate for another grilled fish. He made some more for her and brought it over, but instead of eating it herself, she fed it all to her Yukai, Nekogami, surprising him because he had no idea she was taking care of the creature this whole time. She thanked him sweetly and asked if he could make the grilled fish for her again, and he happily agreed. The next day, Yaya still continued following him around everywhere, making everyone wonder if it was still fish she wanted or wanted him to grill her instead. The following week, Chisaki showed up to interrogate Koga about Yuna, being nosy about what this mysterious ghost girl actually looked like. She asked if she could snap a photo to see if the camera would pick up anything, but Yuna told Koga to relay that she hated taking pictures because she always looked scary. However, Chisaki wanted to talk with her, but Koga told her it would take 10 years of training and near-death experiences to be able to talk to ghosts. Chisaki wouldn't risk that, but seeing that Chisaki was really determined to have a conversation with her, Yuna came up with a not-so-brilliant idea of them communicating through writing. The two girls kept chatting throughout class, which left Chisaki completely distracted and Koga sitting there, wondering what kind of gossip session was happening right between these two. Their conversation shifted to talking about Koga himself, and Chisaki was shocked to learn that Yuna was actually living in the same room as him. Chisaki became jealous and stupidly asked if they were dating. Yuna became embarrassed as she denied it, but Chisaki thought that it was not safe for both of them to be staying in the same room because Koga's magnum could take over and prey on her. Right in the middle of this chaos, the teacher called on Chisaki to read a passage to the class, but since she had been paying zero attention to the lesson, she had no clue where to even start. The teacher was not having it and sentenced her to stay after school to clean up classroom materials as punishment, which made Yuna feel terrible for constantly dragging everyone around her into trouble. After Chisaki finished her punishment with Yuna's invisible assistance, they continued their heart-to-heart conversation. Chisaki told her she wanted to do something nice to thank her for all the help, and remembering how Yuna had tried to peek at her uniform before, she offered to let the ghost girl do whatever she wanted to satisfy her curiosity. Yuna was hesitant at first because she didn't want to take advantage of Chisaki's kindness, but when Chisaki insisted she could touch and explore however she wanted, Yuna immediately started undressing her like they wanted to film some girl-to-girl porn. After getting a thorough examination of Chisaki's goodies, the poor girl became sad that she wouldn't be able to see how Yuna looked in the school uniform, but Yuna grabbed Chisaki's hand and guided it so she could feel all her curves. That's exactly when Koga decided to check on them, and the sudden interruption startled both girls so much that they collapsed on top of each other in a compromising position. Bro saw them this way and immediately suffered an existential crisis. Later, up on the rooftop, Yuna proudly showed off her new school uniform transformation, thanking Chisaki for making it all possible. Since Chisaki still couldn't actually see her, she offered to take another photo, explaining that pictures were a way to preserve memories forever, and even though she was reluctant, she finally agreed. But when Chisaki checked the result, she discovered that Yuna looked like something straight out of a horror movie. She managed to keep her composure and quickly applied every filter she could find to make the image less terrifying. Seeing the improved photo made Yuna incredibly happy, and she thanked Chisaki for being so thoughtful. That night, Koga got home and found Nanko lounging around in her casual clothes, which prompted him to ask if she actually had a real job or if she was just another unemployed person wasting time like you. Just then, some crazy editor showed up at their door, revealing that Nanko was actually a manga artist who was dangerously close to missing a major deadline. Nanko admitted she hadn't made any progress and begged Koga to help her finish the project. Nanko started working on her manga at lightning speed, while Koga and the editor provided moral support from the sidelines. As she drew, she suddenly began to act like a psycho because of how ridiculous the plot was. Eventually, she got stuck on a questionable scene that showed the main character getting way too handsy with a girl, and they decided Koga should help by posing as a reference model, shocking him. They both changed into school uniforms to recreate the scene, and while Koga was initially shy about the whole thing since he was innocent and would never touch a girl deliberately, Nanko told him to grab all he could while he got the chance. So bro thought about this and instantly went beast mode, abandoning his manners and getting way more intense than necessary, like he was about to devour her completely. A few hours later, Koga noticed that she hadn't touched a drop of alcohol since starting work, which was extremely unusual behavior for her, considering she was an addict. He asked her if she really loved her job, and Nanko began her once upon a time story. She used to be a Yukai hunter just like Sakiri, but during one particularly dangerous mission, she had a near-death experience that made her realize she actually valued her life too much to keep risking it for such a dangerous career. Nanko finally finished her work, and while Koga tried to excuse himself, she held him back and began to drink like she had a mission to destroy her kidneys. This also came with stripping into her creation state, but Nakai wasn't even surprised by this behavior since it always happened every single time Nanko completed a project. A few days later, after Koga and Yuna left for school, Nakai quickly threw on her school uniform and snuck out of the inn. As she tried to make her escape without anyone spotting her, she saw Koga heading back and immediately panicked, scared that they would catch her. She felt sorry for Koga as she activated her luck manipulation powers, which instantly summoned a random bull that charged at him and carried him off against his will. But because her powers always had a counter-reaction effect, a dog started chasing her all the way to school. At school, she spent her time fangirling over celebrities and doing typical student activities with her classmates. She was so excited that she could keep this a secret from her guys at the inn, because this was the only way to keep her face as the manager of the inn. During break time, as she was walking through the hallway, some old chunky dude who turned out to be the principal stopped her and said he never believed she would actually become a student at his school. Nakai also fired back that she never thought her childhood friend with a gap tooth wider than a highway would end up running a school. These two were childhood friends, but Nakai hadn't aged a single day because of her role as the household protective deity. The old man started walking away and congratulated her since attending school, like every other Yunjin, had always been her biggest dream. A few minutes later, when Nakai and her friends were carrying their lunch to eat, some absolute losers showed up and started hitting on them. But since these guys looked like they crawled out of a dumpster, the girls immediately shut them down, and this annoyed them. When the girls tried to leave, these morons blocked their path, but when Nakai tried standing up for herself like a true feminist, one of the dudes kicked her lunch into the air just to be a jerk. However, she quickly used her luck manipulation to magically reassemble all the food back onto her tray like nothing had happened. The idiots kept bothering them, and one dude even offered to ride them like a stallion, but Nakai warned them not to push her buttons. The guy ignored her warning and tried to grab her forcefully, so she quickly activated her luck manipulation again, but this time for bad luck, wishing the universe would bring them the most gruesome fate. Just then, Koga appeared as their personal nightmare and told the dudes to stop the crap they were doing to the girls. They wondered who the heck he was and tried to attack him, but he beat them blue-black and had them running off with their tails between their legs. Nakai quickly covered her face, shocked that Koga was the bad luck or power set for those dudes, and also her own bad luck too, the counter-reaction of using her power. Meanwhile, the other two girls immediately swarmed him, completely smitten and ready to throw themselves at him, but he told them he was into cougars and walked away without even realizing that Nakai was standing right there. That night, Nakai returned to her usual innkeeper persona, and Koga arrived home without realizing anything, but Nakai was grateful she had met someone like him. Some days after that incident, Koga asked Yuna what her lingering regrets might be, but she was completely clueless about it. He suggested she try doing different activities to see if anything triggered a memory about what was keeping her tied to the mortal world. That's when Nakai reminded her that she had always wanted to visit Yunaul, a hot spring facility that had recently opened in town. Nakai then pulled out a pair of tickets and suggested they go on a date together, immediately making them embarrassed. On the day of their outing, they were still feeling awkward about the whole date situation, but since it was something Yuna really wanted to do, Koga decided to make it happen for her. They arrived at the facility, and when they got to the front desk, the receptionist explained that the tickets were specifically for couples, but being the genius he was, the idiot replied that he was on a date with someone only he could see, making everyone in the room think he was a psycho. However, the receptionist let him in anyway, probably out of pity. Once inside, Koga and Yuna changed into their swimsuits, and he started wondering what people actually did on dates since this was his first time experiencing anything like this with a girl. They watched what other couples were doing and tried to copy them. But whenever Koga asked the staff for the same treatment, they kept telling him that the romantic packages were for couples only, not for lonely guys with imaginary girlfriends, which made him feel really terrible. While Yuna apologized for being invisible, they decided to hit the water slide since that didn't require any special couple status to enjoy. Yuna went down first while Koga followed right behind her, but her swimsuit decided to betray her at the worst possible moment and flew right off. She somehow ended up landing on top of him in a completely compromising position, which embarrassed both of them so much that his brain completely short-circuited and he passed out from the overload. Later that evening, they both relaxed in the hot spring sauna, but Koga was struggling to keep his body under control the entire time. Yuna noticed that he had been acting weird and uncomfortable throughout their entire date, so she told him that even though she had always dreamed of going on a date and appreciated that he was desperate to resolve her lingering regret, she wanted to come back again, but with him acting like his normal self instead of being so tense and awkward. A few days later, this delusional fool named Genshiro, who thought he had the Goku Riz, started kidnapping random women because he convinced himself they were all desperate for his attention. However, his loyal servant Oboro smacked him on his thick skull for doing something irrational, and then had to break it to him that these basic girls weren't powerful enough to be his wife, because he needed a hybrid of Akame and Nezuko. Meanwhile, back at the inn, Koga woke up and discovered he was in yet another compromising position with Yuna. He tried to carefully extract himself before she woke up and launched him across the room again, but then he noticed his leg was somehow tangled up in her underwear, leaving him completely baffled about how that even happened. At that moment, Yuna opened her eyes and immediately turned red from embarrassment, throwing him off again like a piece of trash in the process. After that awkward wake-up call, she felt absolutely terrible and started contemplating jumping out the window because she was convinced she made Koga's life miserable every single day, but they stopped her from dying the second time. The other girls then told her how she could make up for it, so she immediately went to bring him some sauce while he was eating breakfast. After chatting for a while, Yuna told Koyuzu to get ready for her first official errand for the inn, which she would be supervising, surprising Koga. Later, while they were heading back from completing the errand, Genshiro, who was also walking past at that time, looking for the right girl, suddenly spotted Yuna and immediately realized he had found the perfect girl to add to his catalog. He approached her with all the confidence of a discount superhero and announced that he wanted to make her his bride. Yuna got so flustered that her suspension powers activated automatically, launching Genshiro straight into a Closeby river. But instead of being discouraged, this only made him more excited because he had been searching for someone powerful who would keep him on his toes. He activated some powerful, mysterious energy that lifted him into the air and instantly dried his clothes, which shocked Yuna and Koyuzu. He then grabbed Yuna against her will, declaring that he would make her his bride whether she liked it or not, but she protested and tried using her suspension abilities to break free. Unfortunately, her powers had no effect on him this time. Koyuzu tried to help by blurting out that Yuna was already Koga's bride since they had been going incognito together every night, shocking Genshiro and making him mad as he imagined the different plot positions they must have used. But instead of backing down, he got even more fired up and said he would teach that guy a lesson for getting handsy with his future wife. They opened up some kind of magical portal, and Genshiro carried Yuna away into it. While Koyuzu felt completely useless and powerless to stop them, she attempted to fight back using her leaf magic, but Oboro easily countered her weak attacks. Just then, Koyuzu desperately told Oboro that Koga would come to rescue Yuna, but Oboro just laughed and explained that his master was the black dragon god of Ryuga Lake, and that Koga was absolutely nothing compared to his power. However, Yuna begged them not to hurt her, and then told Koyuzu that they should not come and save him, fearing that Koga might be in danger. They soon disappeared through the portal with Yuna, leaving poor Koyuzu crying her eyes out. On her way back to the inn, Koyuzu ran into Koga and Sakiri, and explained everything that had happened, feeling guilty for being the cause. But Koga told her it wasn't her fault. Koga immediately started preparing to go and save Yuna, and Koyuzu immediately shrank in size, volunteering to come along to help also. Sagiri tried to warn him that the Black Dragon God was classified as an actual deity because he was considered too powerful for even the Chuma clan to defeat. But Koga couldn't care less about some overhyped mofo and insisted on going anyway. Seeing how determined he was, Sagiri decided she would join him too, however not as a Chuma ninja now, but as Yuna's friend who wanted to help. Meanwhile, back at Ryuga Castle, Oboro showed up with a bunch of books about proper wife etiquette and behavior, which made Yuna realize these guys were dead serious about their crazy plan. She told him she didn't have any feelings for Genshiro, but Oboro asked if that was because of the Koga guy, who was already taking her to Cloud 9. But Yuna explained that she had only brought Koga pain and trouble instead of happiness, and that she might actually be bad luck for him. Oboro saw an opportunity and suggested that she should consider marrying Genshiro then so that Koga could finally live his best life without her constantly causing problems for him. She gave this a thought. When they reached the castle, Koga and Sagiri came up with a rescue plan where Sagiri would sneak inside to save Yuna, while he created a distraction by challenging the Black Dragon God directly. Sagiri quickly changed into a tight-fitting outfit that showed off all her curves, which made Koga lose focus immediately, but he managed to keep his mind together before Sagiri unalived him. And Sagiri explained that the tights she was wearing would protect her from taking damage whenever she got hit. However, one of the city guards suddenly heard them. Thanks to Koyuzu's stupidity, but Sagiri quickly took him out before he could cause any chaos. Following this, they immediately put their plan into action, with Sagiri heading toward Yuna's location. But Koga boldly walked through the front gate like he owned the place, calling out Jinchuru and demanding that Yuna be released, which shocked Sagiri because this was not part of the plan. They captured him and dragged him to their boss. Meanwhile, as Sagiri made her way to find Yuna, she had no idea that Oboro was already there waiting with her. Koga started chatting with Jinchuru and asked if he was seriously planning to marry a ghost, and this guy casually called him an ignorant fool, saying that since ancient times, children had been born of couplings between dragons and other races, since the only thing needed was a spiritual genetic soul. Then he asked Koga if it was true that he had been getting frisky with Yuna before. Realizing this was clearly bothering the dragon god, Koga decided to exploit his jealousy to buy some extra time. So he told him that he and Yuna did intense workout sessions every day, twice on Sunday, which made Jinchuru turn green with envy. Meanwhile, Sagiri finally made it into Yuna's room and started wasting time talking like she had all the time in the world to pull off this rescue mission. She suddenly got blindsided by Oboro, who was actually impressed that she was using a spirit clothes barrier to absorb the damage from attacks. Seeing the chaos unfolding, Yuna quickly told Koyuzu to make a run for it. But while Sagiri tried fighting back, Oboro absolutely demolished her with zero effort. She then dragged her to Jinchuru and suggested that he might also be interested in making Sagiri his wife too, since she also had incredible spiritual powers and a milk factory. When this depraved god got a good look at what Sagiri was working with, he immediately gave her the green light to join his collection. However, Koga desired to continue playing with Jinchuru's jealousy. He escalated things by claiming that he and Yuna even did the boombaya in the shower, which made Jinchuru very furious. Reaching his boiling point, he stepped forward and delivered a powerful punch that sent Koga flying into the sky, shocking Yuna and Chisaki. Landing on the ground, they wondered if he was dead, but his hand began to twitch and he got up on his feet. Meanwhile, the impact was so strong that it had broken the cuffs holding his hands, and he warned Jinchuru to release both girls or he would take them home by force. Jinchuru laughed at what he thought was a joke and advised Koga to consider starting a comedy career. Jinchuru then bragged about how excited he was to take both girls on their wedding night. This pushed Koga over the edge, so he charged forward and delivered a punch so powerful that it launched Jinchuru straight to the moon, shocking everyone. Koga revealed that he had once been possessed by the ghost of an incredibly powerful spirit medium who forced him to become his student, but thanks to that brutal training, he gained the strength to eventually defeat Jinchuru. However, the only thing he wouldn't punch was women. Everyone was absolutely shocked that he could actually beat the Black Dragon God, and most of the subordinates started thinking about dipping. However, Oboro remembered the promise she had made to Jinchuru's mother to help make the Ryuga clan stronger, so she told everyone not to worry. She would handle this mess herself. She immediately unleashed her full power, and Koga responded with his devastating punches, which Oboro had to dodge carefully because she knew one direct hit would send her to the Shadow Realm. As Koga threw more punches at her, her clothes suddenly got torn, revealing her bouncy floaties, instantly making him realize she was a girl. Oboro reminded him that he didn't punch girls, causing him to immediately switch from attack to defense. Oboro tried to take advantage of his hesitation, and as she attempted to land a brutal sword strike, Nanko suddenly appeared out of nowhere and caught the blade with her bare hand, shocking Oboro that yet another ridiculously strong girl had joined the fight. Nanko ordered everyone to stop and go back home, but Oboro declared that wasn't happening because they were all going to become Ginshuru's brides. When Koga tried to reason with her, she shut him up and said he was included too. However, Koga suggested they could settle this whole situation without anyone having to fight. But Oboro couldn't see how that was possible. That's when he told her he had the perfect strategy in mind that would solve everything. Some minutes later, Jinchuru woke up completely confused, and Oboro told him that he had actually defeated Koga in their battle. This surprised him because the last thing he remembered was getting punched into orbit, but she explained that the power from his attack must have caused a recoil that made his brain glitch. She then pointed to Yuna and Saikiri, who had been disguised to look like they were ascending to heaven after being satisfied when they saw him, so that their lingering regrets were solved instantly. Somehow, this absolute moron actually believed the ridiculous story and accepted that he wasn't meant to have a ghost wife after all. Yuna confessed to Koga that part of her had actually wanted to become Ginshuru's bride, and he immediately assumed that getting married must be her lingering regret keeping her tied to the world. But she corrected him, explaining that she had only considered it because she felt like she had brought him nothing but pain and trouble. However, he told her he didn't mind any of that and assured her he was going to make her happy no matter what. Meanwhile, after realizing that Koga was actually stronger than her master, Oboro made a secret vow to bring him down by any means necessary. The next day, Koga woke up and discovered his hand was gripping something soft and round. He was absolutely horrified when he realized he was grabbing Oboro's chest, and he had no idea how she had even gotten into his room. She then casually told him that she wanted to have his child because she needed a strong warrior, and that this would be the best thing for her clan's future. Hearing this, Koga and Yuna became shocked. During the weekend, Chisaki decided to visit the legendary haunted Yuraji Inn because Yuna had begged her to come, and while she was somehow scared, she summoned the courage to go anyway. Meanwhile, she beamed with excitement because this was finally her chance to spy on how Yuna and Koga lived together. But the moment she opened the front door, her brain nearly short-circuited when she walked straight into Koga and some random chick practicing a baby-making judo fighting technique. Koga immediately tried to explain that Oboro had jumped on him when he was not looking, but Chisaki didn't seem to buy that. Meanwhile, Oboro stood up and walked away since her plan had been completely ruined. Just then, Koyuzu popped up out of the room to welcome Chisaki like nothing weird had just happened. The rest of the inn crew rolled up to greet their new guest. But when Sayuri saw how adorably dressed Chisaki was, she started having a full-blown crisis about her own tragic fashion sense. Koga announced he was heading out to work and probably wouldn't be back until morning because he desperately needed to earn some cash for a new uniform, as he couldn't continue to depend on Koyuzu to magically make a uniform for him every time. Later at dinner, while they all sat down to have a chit-chat, the girls managed to convince Chisaki to crash there for the night, and she accepted. Following this, she teamed up with Nakai to whip up some Italian dishes that made Yaya act like she had just discovered the meaning of life, leaving the others wondering if this was how easy it was to tame her. The shower time came, and the girls started gushing about how gorgeous Chisaki was and figured she must have boys lined up around the block fighting for her attention. Hearing this, Oboro came closer and asked Chisaki for tips on how to capture Koga, since she seemed to be an expert, but Chisaki admitted she had zero experience in that department. She did drop some wisdom though, telling Oboro that throwing herself at him like a desperate maniac wasn't going to work no matter how hard she tried. Oboro fired back that she didn't even like the guy and just wanted him to be her future baby daddy, which made Chisaki's jaw hit the floor. She got all fired up and lectured Oboro on all the lessons she had learned in church. That night, Yuna, Chisaki, and Koyuzu all piled into the same room for a sleepover, and after some mindless chatter, they finally lay down to sleep. But Chisaki's brain refused to shut down because she couldn't stop thinking she was sleeping in a boy's room and that Yuna and Koga were sharing that same room. While she was lying there overthinking everything, Yuna suddenly started doing her sleep acrobatics routine and used Chisaki as a human pillow. Chisaki, wondering why she couldn't move, accidentally grabbed Yuna's balloon. When she realized, she immediately moved Yuna away and adjusted her properly. However, she got completely embarrassed thinking about how Yuna must act when she's sleeping next to Koga if this was her norm. A little while later, Koga dragged himself back from work, looking like he had just run a marathon, and since he was practically dead on his feet, he crashed into bed without noticing they had a guest. Knowing he was there in the room made him even more uncomfortable. When Koga's face ended up pointing toward her, she decided she needed to escape before things got even weirder. But Yuna's sleeping arms went wild and began squeezing juices out of her melons and bunda. This got really weird, and as she tried removing herself from Yuna's grip, she ended up chest planting right onto Koga's face. She became so embarrassed, but while she tried to scramble away before the situation exploded, the guy somehow grabbed her underwear in his sleep. Little Koyuzu woke up at the perfect moment to see Chisaki's chest right in front of her face, and seeing Chisaki's face, she reasoned that this had to be the weirdest expression in this anime. But thinking it was a dream, she decided to make the best use of it since she loved Chisaki's plot so much and wouldn't get this chance in real life anyway. So she grabbed one of the twin dangles and put it in her mouth, leaving Chisaki wondering how crazier things could get that night. Chisaki quickly pushed her off but ended up sitting on Koga's face instead, which finally woke him up, wondering what kind of performance was going on here. But thinking it was just one of her sleep acrobatics, he chose to be a gentleman and covered her up properly, instead of putting his meat to immediate use. But right when he was about to go back to sleep, Oboro burst in looking for some late-night action. However, he shut her down immediately, causing her to think it was because she was flat. He told her not that and explained that he only wanted to do romantic stuff with someone he loved and loved him back too, instead of just craving his meat. Seeing he was such a dumb idiot, she stomped off, saying she'd wait around until he fell for her then. The next morning, Chisaki said her goodbyes to everyone and left Yuna a note warning her to watch how she clung to people in her sleep, or someday Koga might get the wrong idea and get in the mood to destroy her entry, instantly making her embarrassed. The following week at school, the teacher dropped the news that they were having a seaside school trip next week, and everyone could wear whatever swimsuits they wanted, which made the whole class lose their minds with excitement. But Sayuri started panicking because her only swimsuit options in her wardrobe were clothes that looked like aprons. Since she had the fashion sense of a pig, she thought wearing those would make her look like she came to wash dishes instead of swimming. She was ready to just roll with whatever way she looked until Aurora noticed her distress and interrupted her. She told her they needed to go shopping for swimsuits, as there was no way she would allow Sayuri to appear at the beach looking like Rock Lee while everyone else looked like beach models. Aurora then dropped the brilliant idea that they should drag Koga along, embarrassing her, and she wondered why. She replied that they needed a guy's opinion on their picks, and hearing this, Sagiri knew she was cooked because how would she ask Koga to go shopping with her without it coming off as a date request? Later that night, she spent forever standing outside Koga's door trying to figure out what to say that wouldn't make things weird. When Koga finally stepped out and saw her lurking there like a lost puppy, he asked what was wrong. She tried to ask him directly, but got so flustered that she blurted out some nonsense about needing his help hunting down a spirit at a swimsuit store. The guy bought this ridiculous story immediately since he believed his life's mission was to fight spirits, and he followed her without question. When they met up with Aurora, he asked where the yokai was, surprising Aurora, but she instantly realized what was happening and quickly played along. At the store, they started trying on different swimsuits while Koga stood there, wondering how any of this related to spirit hunting. But Aurora kept the lie going by claiming they needed to act super normal to avoid alerting the supposed spirit so it would reveal itself. This poor guy believed every word of it again, like he had a unicellular brain. Sagiri modeled different swimsuits and asked for his opinion, and even though he said they all looked nice, Aurora kept shooting them down, saying Sagiri needed to look like she was getting signed into the corn industry. In the changing room, Sagiri started getting nervous about Aurora's suggestions and was reluctant because they all made her look sassy. But Aurora, trying to convince her, grabbed her bazookas and started playing with the pointed triggers, telling Chisaki she needed to show off what her mother's genes gave her. Sagiri got way too into it, and they both ended up tumbling to the ground in a heap. Koga heard the crash and thought the spirit was attacking, so he yanked open the curtain only to get a full view of the girls in a very sus position. Later, on their way back, Koga figured out the whole spirit story was complete garbage. He told Sagiri he would have come shopping with her anyway if she had told him the truth because he was actually excited about the beach trip too. On the day of the seaside school, everyone changed into their swimsuits and hit the ocean. While they were splashing around in the ocean, having the time of their lives, someone brought up rumors about a creepy sea UK that supposedly snatched people up without warning. At that moment, some nasty slimy tentacles suddenly grabbed them and began to remove their plot covers, causing chaos in the ocean as the girls screamed in what felt like excitement. Koga and Sagiri immediately went into attack mode, but the thing kept regenerating like it had unlimited growth cheat activated. They figured out they had to take down the main body that was about 300 meters underwater, and Koga told everyone to chill as he dove into the water, shocking everyone because a normal human shouldn't be capable of that. Meanwhile, Sagiri was not surprised. Koga proceeded to destroy the monster in one hit, saving the girls that were almost getting pregnant for the monster. After the rescue, the girls tried telling their classmates what really happened, but everyone thought Koga had somehow brainwashed them into believing his fake hero act. Chisaki and her friend felt bad about this whole situation and decided they wanted to help make sure Koga got the credit he deserved for being an actual spirit medium. They came up with what seemed like a genius plan where Aurora and Sagiri would fake summon a monster during that night's test of courage activity. Then Koga would defeat it in front of witnesses who would spread the word to everyone. It sounded foolproof until that night when they all paired up, and as they walked through the forest, an actual real monster suddenly appeared out of nowhere, scaring everyone out of their minds. A few minutes before the monster appeared, two total losers were wandering through the forest whining about how they wished they got paired with Chisaki instead of being stuck together. They stumbled across a random rock, and one of these fools decided to kick it over for absolutely no reason, which immediately released a monster that had been locked away for who knows how long. The creature tried to chomp down on them with its teeth, but Koga swooped in like a hero and let the thing bite his arm instead, shocking everyone watching. The monster got all excited thinking it scored an easy snack and bragged about how it was going to snap his arm clean off. But when it actually tried to bite down harder, its own teeth started cracking like cheap plastic, leaving the monster wondering what the heck was happening. Koga calmly asked the two morons if they were the ones who knocked over the rock, and they sheepishly admitted their stupidity. Then he got down on his knees and apologized to the monster for disturbing its beauty sleep. He made the two idiots join him in apologizing, and the monster suddenly realized that Koga was way stronger than whoever originally sealed it in that rock. Rather than pick a fight it couldn't win, the creature decided to go back to being sealed like a good little monster. Everyone stood there amazed that Koga solved the whole problem without throwing a single punch, and the two guys finally apologized for doubting him all this time. Later that night, after the girls had some intense sauna battle with all kinds of plot sizes, they ran into Koga and his buddy who asked if they could sneak into the girls' room later for some late-night fun. The girls immediately shot down this ridiculous idea, but then Yuna got all excited saying she always wanted to experience boys sneaking into their room. While the girls played card games in their room, they wondered how the guys would even get in since two teachers were guarding the entrance like prison wardens. But Koga suddenly appeared at the window later, carrying the other guy like he was delivering pizza, leaving everyone wondering how he pulled that off. He explained that he once got possessed by the spirit of some professional rock climber who taught him all the tricks, and everyone wondered why he had been possessed by so many spirits. They all started playing games until they heard a teacher coming, so everyone dove under the blankets pretending to be fast asleep. The teacher walked in and started looking around suspiciously, while Sadie, Chisaki, and Yuna all squeezed into the same blanket with Koga like sardines. Dude was wondering why Yuna was even hiding since nobody could see her anyway, but she was too busy pressing against his chest and embarrassed while at it. She almost poured from her floodgates just from lying down on him, which made the teacher even more suspicious, but Koga quickly grabbed her before she exposed them all. However, she got way too heated and her ghost powers activated again, launching everyone into the air like they just bounced off some invisible trampoline. But before the teacher could realize what was happening, Koga grabbed the other dude and went straight out to the window in a split second. So the teacher didn't find anything suspicious. The following day, while Yuna and Koga watched some sea creatures in the aquarium, some dudes came over to ask him if he had asked Chisaki to dance with him for that night's campfire dance. But when he replied no, they were so excited and ran off to meet her immediately. Yuna then tried asking him if he could dance with her, but she changed her mind and told him not to worry. Later that night during the festival, Yuna got hyped up because she loved to dance, instantly making Koga realize that this was what she was trying to say earlier, so he offered to dance with her. As they danced, the other students wondered what he was doing since they could not see Yuna, but Chisaki suspected he was dancing with her. Meanwhile, Yuna was embarrassed, worried everyone might think he was a psycho for dancing all by himself, but he told her he could see her, instantly make her blush. The following week after their beach adventure, Koga, Sagi, and Yaya were hitting the books studying for a test when Oboro randomly walked in and started massaging Koga's back with her soft pillows, shocking everyone in the room. Afterwards, she tracked down Koyuzu, who apparently knew all about magic spells, and begged her to whip up a love potion she could use on Koga. Meanwhile, Nanko showed up in the study room looking suspicious with a lollipop in her hand, which she started licking until the lolly creamed. Yuna finished making parfaits for the study group, and as she headed to deliver them, Koyuzu and Oboro intercepted her and offered to help carry them. Koyuzu secretly added the love potion to one of the parfaits and told Oboro to keep track of which one it was so she could make sure Koga got the right one. But as they walked to the study room, Nanko suddenly grabbed one of the parfaits and tried to eat it, though Oboro managed to convince her to put it back, asking her to go ask Yuna for hers instead. When she finally got to the study room, Oboro realized the parfaits had gotten all mixed up when Nanko returned the one she carried earlier, and she had no clue which one had the love potion anymore. She just served them randomly and hoped for the best. Several minutes after everyone finished eating, Sagiri suddenly started acting super weird around Koga and wondered what was going on with her. She somehow eventually got on top of Koga's lap to show off her assets, making Oboro realize that Sagiri had eaten the love potion by mistake. The effects wore off pretty quickly, and Sagiri became completely embarrassed that she did all of that even though she had always clamored for morality. So she ran off to hide in her room, and while Koga went after her to make sure she was okay, Oboro remembered Koyuzu warning her that the love potion would only work if the person already had some feelings for the target to begin with, which only meant one thing: Sagiri was in love with Koga. The following week, Yuna woke up first that day and was shocked Koga was sleeping so calmly with his hand on one of her melons. She tried to remove herself before she got in the mood and threw him off again, but this creepy loser placed his other hand on her second melon, instantly triggering her and throwing him off the room. Later that day, Koyuzu was leaving for Chisaki's place, Yaya was going on another vacay, Sakiri was returning to her village, and Yaya was headed wherever the heck, leaving Koga alone at home with Yuna and the two other crazy girls. Just after they all left, Nanko received a call from work, and she begged Koga and the others to help her this again, annoying him that she was late again, but she promised to take them on a luxurious vacation. After completing a project, they headed to a beach house in Hawaii to celebrate actually finishing her work on time for once in her life. While they were chilling at the beach, Koga started getting naughty with the girls in the name of massage, and when it was Yuna's turn, he accidentally slipped his hand somewhere it definitely shouldn't have gone, making her face turn every shade of red. So she launched him into the sky like a human rocket again. But while he was flying through the air, he spotted some mysterious ghost lady standing on a cliff looking all dramatic and sad. Back at their vacation house, Nanko started telling Koga about the legend behind the ghost he saw, which got his attention immediately. She spilled the tea about this tragic love story from way back when, involving a girl who tried to run away with her true love because her parents were trying to force her into some arranged marriage nonsense. The two lovebirds had planned to meet up on that exact cliff, but the guy never showed up because he got into a car accident and died on his way to see her. When the girl realized what happened, she decided she'd rather jump into the ocean and die with him than live in a world without him. But even now, her ghost was still hanging around that cliff waiting for him to show up. Koga figured this had to be what was keeping the lady stuck in the living world, and when he looked at Yuna, he could tell she was feeling all kinds of sad about the story. So he decided to play Cupid and help these dead lovebirds finally meet up. They headed straight to the cliff to meet the ghost girl, who introduced herself as Ami, When they asked where they could find her boyfriend, she pointed across to the other side where he had crashed. This made them wonder why she hadn't just gone over there to meet him if she knew where he was. But she replied that she was a bound ghost, so she couldn't leave the cliff even though she wanted to. Yuna was surprised to hear this since, unlike Ami, she could move around anyhow she wanted, and they attributed this to the fact that she had been around for a long time. Yuna and Koga tracked down the guy, Yasuhisa, to see if he was also trapped somewhere, and he admitted he was too scared to face her because she turned into a complete monster when she got angry. Yasuhisa felt terrible that he was the reason his girlfriend died and couldn't handle the guilt of looking her in the eye. Hearing this, Koga warned him that they both needed to move on, or they'd turn into evil spirits if they stayed stuck here much longer. The guy was ready to give up and head home since these two dead people seemed like they weren't serious about fixing their relationship. But Yuna delivered some next-level motivational speech that convinced him to go back and try again. So Koga came up with a backup plan and told Yasuhisa that he had to force Ami to move on using his forced ascension exorcism before she became an evil spirit. This finally gave Yasuhisa the courage to face his girlfriend, but when he showed up, Ami welcomed him with a series of punches that would make professional boxers jealous, shocking the two relationship counselors watching the whole drama unfold. Eventually, the couple worked through their issues and ascended to heaven together in a very loving way, which made Yuna thrilled. Meanwhile, Koga started feeling down because he still had no clue what was keeping Yuna stuck in the living world, even though they'd been roommates for a whole year. He asked her to tell him about her life before she died, but she said she couldn't remember anything from her past at all. All she could recall was suddenly waking up at the inn one morning and meeting Nakai for the first time. Nakai even gave her the name Yuna. While this was happening, Nanko and Oboro were wondering what the two were doing outside so late at night. But they were amazed that Yuna was on a completely different level from other ghosts they'd seen, and they figured she must have been some incredibly powerful spirit medium when she was alive. Yuna finally told Koga that she was genuinely happy with all the friends she'd made at the inn, and wondered what other lingering regrets she could possibly have, leaving Koga speechless. The next morning, Dude woke up from a bad dream where he was trying Yuna from being sent to the fire, but he realized he had just grabbed her plot again, leaving him to his usual fate. Later, they both were playing outside, and Koga was determined to prevent her from turning evil and stay by her side till when she finally ascended to heaven. If you enjoyed this recap, smash the like button and comment sus in the comment section. Also subscribe to the channel if you're yet to for more action, plot-filled adventures. If you want another anime recap like this, watch this video right here.